Fathers of Reddit, do you have any funny stories of being your daughter's overprotective dad? I work at an anime convention and a lot of parents come through with their children. One day a father and his daughter who was dressed in a skimpy outfit came up to buy passes. While the daughter chose her cosplay character as her badge name, her dad's badge read she's 14 and I own a shotgun. Her own personal bodyguard. I'm the daughter of an overprotective father. My dad used to make meals full of yummy garlic. I love garlic. Before parties when I was a teenager, it wasn't till years later I realized I probably smelled like garlic at all my high school parties. I confronted him about it and he smiled as said, I wondered when you'd realize. I'm not too bright. My daughter isn't quite old enough yet, turns 1 in 3 days, for me to be the overprotective dad, but I have a story about my stepdad and my sister that I love to tell. The day after my wedding, I went down to the hotel's dining area for some breakfast, only to be greeted by my frantic mother. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm so embarrassed and I'm so sorry. I hope we didn't ruin your wedding. I had no idea what she was talking about, so I had her explain. Apparently, my sister's a shat boyfriend, who we'll call Joe, had a little too much to drink at the reception and got verbally abusive toward her back in their hotel room. My sister, upset, called down to my parents' room and asked for my stepdad to come down and try to help calm Joe down. My stepdad walked down the hall to my sister's room and got an expletive-laden earful from Joe. My stepdad stepped out into the hallway, probably to prevent himself from popping Joe in the jaw, and Joe followed him saying, I'll talk to that freaking bee however I want to. My mom, upon hearing that, got between Joe and my stepdad. Joe then proceeded to get in my mom's face and push her on the shoulder with his fingers. That didn't sit well with my stepdad who, in addition to being built like a brick shithouse, is a marine and a trained fighter. In front of everyone who had a room on that floor, which included all of my wife's family, my stepdad grabbed Joe, put him in a submission hold of some sort, carried him to the elevator, rode down 3 floors, and literally threw him out the hotel's front door into the cold, January, Wisconsin weather, and told him not to come back upstairs until he sobered up and apologized to my sister. As my sister was Joe's ride, Joe called his father to come pick him up at the hotel, a 90-minute ride for Joe's dad. As far as I know, he never did apologize to my sister, and it still took my sister 2 more months to break up with that idiot. Your stepdad is the restraint of a monk. I am quite amazed that story didn't end with Joe being in an ambulance. Had to take her, 12, to buy volleyball shorts. Fathers, avoid this at all costs. Apparently, private parts shrink wrap is the correct size. I kept sending her back in to try on larger sizes, until she finally said, with an exasperated look, Dad, these are the biggest size they make. Frick everything about that. Volleyball player here. This is true. My dad always had a pair of pants waiting for me before and after my games. Mine is a little different, but I know I am in trouble and will be that overprotective dad. My daughter, who is 9, has a few little boys that like her. I told her the other day, just to let you know, the first boy you bring home I am going to have to shoot him just to make a point. She looked at me, not missing a beat. She told me, well, I guess I should bring the ugly one home first. I am screwed. To frick with the first guy she brings home, just say so that's the ugly one. I got involved with this boy when I was 14. He was 16 and on the wrestling team. One day, I cracked a joke at his expense. I do this with all my friends, and he backhanded me and told me he wasn't someone to insult. I was in shock. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I told him he would regret hurting me. I grabbed my stuff and took off for home. It was a 45-minute walk. So, I get home and my brother asks me why I'm home from school in the middle of the day. Then he sees my face. My cheek was bright red and I had the beginnings of a real shiner. My brother got an ice pack, gave it to me and told me to start talking. I relay what happened. I went to my room to cry and try to calm down. I came down a few hours later and my brother was gone. He didn't come back until after supper. The next day at school, my now ex-boyfriend wasn't there. I was pretty relieved because I had no idea how to handle it. Same thing the next day, and the next. He missed that entire week of school. Week after, my eye is pretty much healed and he shows up with a broken arm, broken nose and stitches in his swollen lip. He saw me and fear flashed across his face. My brother denies ever laying a finger on him and refuses to tell me exactly what he did or who he talked to about it. Looking back, I should have told my parents, but we were not on good terms then and my brother has always been there for me. Most times I don't even need to ask for his help. He just sees through me and does what needs to be done. As a brother with 3 younger sisters, this is the correct response. As a brother to what I suspect to be a KGB sleeper agent, I don't think I'll ever need to be protective. A boy groped my 13-year-old sister's thigh once, right in front of me, the cocky crap, and she immediately turned round and Falcon punched his 2 front teeth into his windpipe. Someone actually had to slap him on the back to stop him choking. Your sister is awesome. My ex-girlfriend's father told me that if I hurt his daughter he would cut my balls off, hang them from the ceiling fan and make them repeatedly hit me as they go around. Now that's some creativity. My sister had a bad habit of dating buttholes and dongs. My dad has the mountain man beard and before this day I had never seen him clean shaven. Well, dong boyfriend was over and he asks why my dad has no beard today. My dad responded, I only shave it when I kill someone. I was on the other end of maybe the most awkward version of this ever. Me and 2 buddies ended up in a friend's, who was a girl, living room. Her dad started doing the prototypical shotgun cleaning in the living room. That was awkward, but then this exchange happens. Her dad, what the heck are you doing? Him, just making sure. Her, there are 3 guys here. What do you think I'm going to do, sleep with them all? Him, you are your mother's dog. Her, mortified. It was awesome. We were at a Chuck E. Cheese-like establishment and our daughter was playing in the play area. She was about 2 at the time. They have an area with multiple slides, all lined up so the kids can race. As our daughter was heading down her slide, and a little boy slid down the slide next to her. During their descent, he reached over and grabbed her arm and was pulling and twisting it. She responded with a panicked help me shriek and my so responded with the loudest growl scream I've ever heard. It was a simple hey to get the attention of the boy so he would release her. It was as if a jet was ripping through the air. It was so loud and booming. If you've ever been in one of these places, the noise is just ridiculous. In the moment my so screamed, the entire place fell silent, like church silent. You could hear a cricket. Once the complete silence lifted and white noise began to fill the room, I gave him the "are you kidding me" look. His response, I don't care if he's 2 or 12. If he hurts my daughter I'll rip his head off. Thankfully, he has relaxed a bit through the years. Chuck E. Cheese. My father once shoved and then literally threw a boy out the front door of our house after I invited him over without my parents at home. Apparently a neighbor called my dad at work. We were actually just watching TV. I dated a black girl in high school. I am white and during the time period, I was a hipster in doing so. When she invited me over to her home, her mother told me that her daddy is locked up, but he will be out soon. So make sure you treat his baby girl with respect. I found out later that her father never was locked up. He was overseas in the military at that time, which would have been just as effective in keeping me afraid. When he returned home and I met him after 2 years, he turned out to be a real nice guy. Dated his daughter for 4 years and ended up breaking it off very respectfully due to her job as a stripper. Another story for another time. Story time. My dad is very overprotective. My fiance used to be long distance, and on our first anniversary he came to my state to visit. The first time he met my father, he was cleaning his guns and loading them very calmly. It backfired and my fiance just got so excited over the guns and started asking about where he got them and started a conversation. We still could not go on a date or be without a chaperone at all times. Finally, a gun cleaning story that ended well. A young boy kissed my 3-year-old daughter full on the lips at a birthday party and exclaimed to the world his undying love for her and professing the need to make babies. Before I could correct the situation, my daughter cocked back and smashed the boy in his mouth. See daddy? Just like you taught me. Oh ho crap. My dad was actually pretty funny with my sister. It was a Friday afternoon and my sister was introducing her boyfriend to my dad. After exchanging pleasantries, her boyfriend asked what time would you like her back by, to which my dad responded have her back by Sunday. This could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. The boyfriend of my oldest daughter went up to her room to change into some shorts. The door to the upstairs was next to the couch I was playing some games on. Everyone else was outside running through multiple sprinklers in the backyard. I decide to inform the young man on his way outside after changing that, "You are an alright kid, but if I ever catch you coming out of my daughter's room with different pants than you end up with, Jimmy, you seem like a good kid, I'd hate to have to kill ya." Evidently, I was a little too sincere whilst trying to be funny. After being brought to task by my wife and daughter, I had to go up into my daughter's room and explain I was only playing. Told him if I was going to kill I'd already done it, and he should get out from behind bed and come downstairs. Told him if I was going to kill I'd already done it. Hehehe. I'm a bit of an overprotective uncle. So one day my niece's boyfriend was my sister brother-in-law and bought a bumper sticker that said "Your little princess is my little W." I felt the need to step in. The next time I saw him I made a joke about it and asked if he put it on his car. Then as he laughed it off and said not yet, I told him I also bought a bumper sticker. It says I killed my niece's boyfriend and buried him in a shallow grave but have not put it on my car yet either, and walked away. I'm not a father, but I do have a related story. When I was 17 I went to go pick up a girl I was dating at her house. At the time I was wearing jeans with many holes all down the front because for some reason I thought it was fashionable. When I get to her house, her father opens the door. He looks me over and tells me to wait outside for a second. He returns a half minute later with a roll of duct tape and proceeds to tape up every last hole on my jeans. I didn't realize it at the time, but the man was doing God's work. My father has a lot of friends who are trash men, so when my sister started dating he took the guy to the side and he said, like, "If you ever treat my daughter badly then I will make sure no one will ever find your body." He was frozen in fear. Good guy though. I try to not be the overprotective dad. That's so last century, man. Instead, I've given her my sense of humor and critical analysis mindset. Take that, hormonal teenage boys. I got invited to prom my freshman year of high school. I went out, bought a dress, shoes, everything. 2 weeks before prom the friend of mine that was taking me came by the house. My stepdad literally cleaned a shotgun in front of him and talked about how nice it was to live near so much land that no one ever used. Guess who didn't go to prom that year? I've been on the receiving end of something pretty funny. Not really overprotective though. I'd been with a girl for a while and knew her mom, but had never met her dad due to him being deployed. Her mom left to go pick him up from the airport without either of our knowledge. We were at her place alone, watching Lord of the Rings, and made some popcorn. They came back around 2 hours later. Guess they got something to eat. Drink time it took to wait possibly fricked. I didn't ask, and they both walked in the door. I'd never met the man, so I turned ghostly white. First thing this man said to me, "Good, your clothes are still on." I thought I wasn't done killing people. Not my daughter, but my niece. My nieces bring their boyfriends over to meet me for the obligatory "he will crush you if you mess with me" speech. I am a very large, 6'7", 325 lbs, shave-headed, tattooed motorcycle riding man. I usually give the speech in a jovial manner and try to get the guy laughing, or at least smiling, so he knows I am not just some out of control donghead. One time at a party, my niece's then boyfriend got pretty toasted and started berating my little niece. She came to me in tears, and that did it. He was sitting in a couch with several of his friends, and when I walked up, he looked up and said, "What you gonna do?" I then picked him smooth up off that couch and one quick motion smacked his head on the ceiling. I lowered him down to my face level and calmly told him that crashing sound he just heard and felt was God calling him home, and that meant it was time to die. He started crying right there in front of his friends, and soon everyone was laughing at him, so he got pouty mad and left the party. They did not stay together very long after the party if I remember correctly. LOL. My oldest daughter, who is now 18, had her first date when she was 15. I always joked with her that I would be cleaning my gun with the first boy she dated. My wife always said, "No, do not do that, it's too mean." Well, the day comes, and I decide to call up a good friend and go to the shooting range that day. Although this is no ordinary day at the range, I fill my friend in. He laughs and wants to have fun with it too. We went to the range in full Rambo mode. I wore my tacked vest with pistol attached, Took my AR. Threw on my shotgun just for crap and giggles. I also took another pistol in a leg holster. Did the whole 9 yards. My friend did the same. We looked absolutely idiotic. Fast forward to 7 PM. We make sure we get to my house just before he is due to arrive. We end up getting there just as they were leaving. Imagine 2 guys. My friend is 6'5", fully ramboed out walking up the driveway. I walked up to my daughter and asked her to introduce us. The sheer horror on this kid's face was absolutely priceless. I was in the doghouse for weeks, but worth it. My only regret for not having a daughter is the fact that I won't be able to greet a BF at the door and let him know that I'm not afraid to go back to prison. I'm not a dad, but was on the receiving end of an overprotective father. Flashback a few years to my first year of med school, and recently graduated from an engineering school. First, going from engineering girls to med school girls is fantastic, and naturally went after a drop-dead gorgeous blonde med student a year above me. We hit it off well, and soon after starting to formally date, I'm going to meet her family. We ended up getting to her hometown a few minutes early, and her dad, a pediatrician, says to come by the hospital so we can meet while the rest of her family gets ready. Her dad is one of those types that may be 50, but is more physically fit and active than most 20-year-old guys. So much so that his arms never quite could be put down to his sides because he had too much muscle. We meet in the atrium of his fancy hospital, muscle bulging from his arms, and politely shake hands until I lost circulation in my fingers. Polite bullshitting ensues about how nice his daughter is. He then invites us up to his floor as he has a few circs to perform. Now I'm only in my 3rd month of med school, so I'll look at my older GF and ask, what is a circ? Turns out it's a circumcision. Frick is all that is going through my head. We enter the circ room, to where he has about 5 babies lined up ready to go. For those unfamiliar, the baby is strapped to a board, exposed entirely, and with a swift guillotine device, the foreskin is chopped off. I assist with all of the procedures as the GF stands in a corner laughing at me becoming petrified of her dad. We ended up breaking up, very clean break. And to this day, I cannot be mad at her dad for how I met him, as chopping off baby penis foreskin remains the most effective way to scare the crap out of a boy. TLDR. My Hulk Hogan-esque ex's father made me perform circumcisions with him for the first time that we met. I was once accused of being the reason for my daughter breaking up with a guy. He said that I set an impossibly high standard for anyone wanting to date my daughters to try to match. I hope that I'm guilty as charged. If not, I will attempt to be. I'm especially humble. It's probably my best feature. Not a father, but I am very protective of my 15-year-old little sister. She goes to boarding school. She is a little genius about 45 minutes away from where I go to college. One day she called me crying about some guy who wouldn't stop texting her and waited for her outside of her classes. The final straw for her was when she saw him watching her from different spots on her running route 4 days in a row. So I got in my car and drove down to her school. When I got there, she met me in the parking lot and explained how his texts kept getting angrier and angrier when she stopped responding. I'm a pretty stereotypical college pothead. I'm into all of that peace and love stuff, and it takes a lot for me to lose my temper. However, texting my sister 6 times without a response and calling her a C will make me go berserk. So after I took her out to lunch, I asked some of her friends if they knew where I could find the kid. After being pointed in the right direction, I eventually found him walking around outside of my sister's dorm. I walked up to him, introduced myself as her loving older brother, and proceeded to tell him that if he continued giving her problems that he and I would have a very serious issue. She hasn't heard from him since. TLDR. Little sister had a kid borderline stalking her at her school. Big brother swoops in to save the day. My mom has a photo that grandma took of my grandpa standing on their porch looking through a pair of binoculars with a rifle in his hand. Story goes, she was at the end of the property in a car with her new boyfriend when the picture was taken. I know, mom not daughter. I had a GF's dad when I was in college tell me, anything you do to my daughter, I'll do to you. Coming from a 6'6" army ranger with quite an intimidating demeanor, it made me feel a bit awkward. Luckily he didn't follow through on the threat. Kinky. Oh sure, I've been terrorizing my daughter's boyfriends as often as possible. My family has always been the type that pokes fun, pranks, teases and generally screw with each other for the love. Any boy that can't handle it has no place here, so I think that he needs a little testing to make sure. My most recent, well, this was a pretty standard ploy, but hey, my daughter was dating this kid. He was actually not a bad guy, had a pretty epic beard, so I gave him some respect for that. However, he was pretty timid, and that's sort of irresistible for me. He had asked her to his prom, they went to different HS, and had shown up to pick her up. 2 important things. 1. My daughter is beautiful. Seriously. And that's not just dad pride. When she dresses up, she's pretty stunning. But doesn't do it often and normally is a ponytail, no makeup, sweats kinda girl. 2nd. That morning, I had taken my son out to the shooting range, so I'm still in my orange shirt and tactical vest and pants. I left my 9mm out on the coffee table for cleaning after I put a few hundred rounds through it. So, this guy shows up. My girlfriend lets him in. While he's standing there, waiting for my daughter to come downstairs, I say nothing and just look at him while I finish cleaning my gun. I finish up, put the barrel back in, and put the slide in place, but don't rack it back yet. Just at that moment, my daughter comes downstairs, the classic reveal moment from the landing. She's got on a strapless, formal dress, blonde hair up with curls, basically all dolled up and looks amazing. His jaw drops a bit. This is the first time he's seen her dressed to the nines. As he is staring at her coming down the stairs, I pull the slide and rack it a few times, loudly. He actually jumped, looks at me and turns a bit pale, which is amusing on a guy normally dark olive skinned. My daughter actually stifles a laugh, then comes down to reassure the boy. We had some lovely pictures. One of me with my arm around his shoulder and my gun in the holster in the front of my pants. Amusingly, he's a Sikh, so I actually challenged him to a sword fight, Punjabi style. Unfortunately, my daughter dumped him before we got a chance. Not so much an overprotective dad, but an overprotective brother. So when this story took place I was in 8th grade, and my sister was in 4th. So the little brother of the 8th grader Shat, we'll call him Pete, made it clear to everyone that he had a thing for my sister. So one day I was out throwing the discus for track with my friend, and Pete decided to come out and watch. After a while, he decides to start bragging about how he made his move on my sister and that she was his for the picking. So, naturally, I gently pick up the child and tell him that if I ever hear of him doing anything with my sister he would wish he had never been born. I then proceeded to gently set him back down and ask him to go get a discus I had just thrown, and when he went out to get it, just to prove my point, I threw another discus that landed right next to him and scared the crap out of him. TLDR. Little Ashat said my sister was his property, proceeded to tell him otherwise. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.